The crew took the Star into the mountains to film a live program related to herbs. As a result, I was photographed wearing a straw hat and a whitewashed work uniform, squatting in the doorway and drinking white porridge. I froze for a long time before I reacted. Directly stood up and closed the door to hide inside. The director's team thought I had never seen the world and was shy, and explained to me softly at the door. And netizens in the live broadcast room were puzzled. Why does this pretty girl look a bit familiar? As a result, the real name Gabriel Pharmacy Big Brother suddenly appeared. Mr. Song was here. I happened to have a question for advice. No wonder I have not been able to find anyone. A pharmaceutical company boss also parachuted in. Millie in the mountains? I see. There's no signal in the mountains. I'll go there myself. The bigwigs from all walks of life appeared in the live broadcast room to squat me as if they had an appointment. Then, in just a few minutes, the pop-up screen exploded and I was on the hot search. After being raked over the coals, the netizens exploded. I went crazy. These last few days of vacation were kind of gone. I just came back from picking herbs in the mountains. I didn't have time to take off my straw hat. And I didn't have time to change my mud-stained pants. So I squatted in front of the door and drank coffee. As I was enjoying my porridge, a burst of noisy laughter came from the front. I was puzzled. And when I raised my eyes, I met a pair of curious eyes and several cameras. I froze for a long time before I reacted. Directly stood up and closed the door. Hiding inside. Shit. Which director is so talented as to go into the deep forest to broadcast live? The director's team thought I hadn't seen the world and was shy, and explained to me softly at the door. Girl, don't be afraid. We are not bad people. We are the program team that came to record the live variety show of Chinese herbs. If you don't believe me, you can search the internet. The director knocked on my door and said softly. Live. Finished. This has to be exposed. I pulled out my cell phone with a bit of a headache. The result is that hundreds of thousands of people watched online. The first hot list of the live broadcast room. The camera of the live broadcast room was aimed at my thatched hut, standing in front of my door. In addition to the director, there were several major guests. All of them have a sad face. A little girl has never seen such a big battle will not be scared. Right? It's also possible that she's shy. Director, why don't we move the camera? Several people muttered in front of the door. The pop-up screen also brushed by. Prickly. This girl is so beautiful. So temperament. Pure natural beauty. The director to shoot more. Haha, on the director that looks like a bad guy. Girl, do not open the door. Outside is the big bad wolf. Why does this pretty girl look familiar? Hahaha, stairs. This set is a bit old. Netizens did not look deeper. Just joking. Until that Gabriel Pharmacy Big Brother hair with the shiny certification suddenly appeared. Ms. Song turned out to be here. I happen to have a question to ask. No wonder I have not been able to find anyone. Gabriel's number. The live broadcast of the pop-up screen clear exclamation point. Immediately after. The same real name authenticated pharmaceutiborn, Millie in the mountains? Got it. There's no signal in the mountains. I'm going to go over there myself. Then, my friends who have been unable to contact me also got the news from somewhere. They came to squat on me. Good man. So you're here. Felix, who has dozens of malls to his name, came to join in the fun and swiped a few rockets with my name. Millie. Eric, who created his own clothing brand and ranked in the top 10 on the media-rich list, also followed suit and swiped rockets and buildings. The others followed the platoon, sending one after the other. Hey. Gotcha. A crowd of netizens lost their words. The screen full of only. The corner of my mouth twitched as I watched. This group of people even brought a rhythm. Under the operation of their group, I was on the hot search. The identity of drive. Herbal medicine was raked over the coals. I swiped around. The netizens' ability to pickpocket people was quite strong. Even the number of SCs I had sent in college was picked up. even touched the message under my microblog. The director's team and a few guests watched the pop-up screen and froze. The director probably got some news and smiled so much that his eyes narrowed. Turning around and knocking on my door again. Teacher Song. I don't know if you have the time. I would like to invite you to join our program, as long as you are willing to participate. Anything is good to talk about. The director changed his tone and said respectfully with a bit of flattery. Looking at the screen full of ones, I fell into deep thought. Am I that intimidating? Millie. So when do we start attending the live broadcast? Now? Jacob trembled and watched carefully as I opened my mouth. I gave a start and flashed him a friendly smile. Now would be fine. Then, his eyes fell on a few of the guests, who were either wearing stilettos or long dresses, and frowned slightly. But Jacob seemed to suck in a backwards breath and held it, waiting somewhat nervously for my butt. Their clothes and shoes have to be changed. Dressed like this on the mountain. Is trying to report a work injury? I just cooled down the voice a turn, turned a tone and said, Yes. I'll tell them to change right away. Jacob nodded his head like garlic, turning his face. He changed his face and turned to the guests, shouting sternly in my original words. The guests read and at the words, and moved quickly to find their respective teams and change. Jacob's execution was excellent. And within half an hour the entire team was ready to head up the mountain. The altitude of Dahongshan Mountain is more than 3,700 meters above sea level, and different medicinal herbs grow at different altitudes. I took them up the mountain with baskets on their backs. As a result, before climbing for long, several guests were already tired and panting, and some even wanted to work in the dark. They said it was too hot, and their hands were scratched and their feet were rubbed with blisters. The aggravation was great. I frowned and watched quietly as the director waved his hand for the live camera to turn away. Patiently negotiating with her, the director's face was already visibly impatient, vaguely about to get angry, but held back. Claire, the popular movie star. What kind of background does she have that she can make the director so tolerant? I asked the person next to me with interest. I just uttered a word. The other party already knew what I was going to ask, and returned with a clear look. The capital behind Claire is Hichu Entertainment, and the person behind Hichu Entertainment is Eric, one of the top figures in the financial world. Everyone in the entertainment industry knows that Claire was promoted by Eric, and no one dares to mess with her. Oh, no wonder on the way up the mountain, the director's attitude towards Claire was different, always choosing her. So it's a little ancestor. Too bad it was me she met. What's her character like? I glanced at the person next to me and continued to ask. It just occurred to me that her name is Regina. When the director introduced her, he said she was a senior in the entertainment industry. It's an old actress who just can't get popular, and has been in a lukewarm state. I don't care what's right or wrong. I'll just tell the truth as I see it. I saw her once let a new actor in the sun for 3 hours. Finally heat stroke into the hospital. In the course of playing a game, she once switched a female singer's milk for paint and made the singer go for a stomach wash and throat damage. There's more. Do you want to hear more? She turned her head and gazed at me with icy eyes. Doesn't seem to be treating me very well? I raised my eyebrows slightly. Enough. With that, I lift my foot and head for the crew carrying the live equipment. The director had put the live broadcast on hold because he had to deal with Claire. Elian, turn it on. We're on live now. I said. Ellie looked puzzled. Millie, don't give me a hard time. We need Jacob's permission to start the program. If anything goes wrong, I'll take the blame knowing his difficulty. I solemnly promised and said. You still reconsider? Eric is very tactful. Not to be messed with. Regina didn't know when she also came over, holding my wrist and reminding me with a grave expression. Compared to the indifference in her eyes before, this time there was more complexity in her eyes. I'm not to be messed with either. I slightly hooked my lips and smiled, perhaps seeing that I was unable to persuade her. Regina let go of her hand. Whatever. Ellie unhesitated for a while, before letting someone turn on the equipment again. And the live camera was aimed at Claire. To everyone's surprise. At the same instant, Claire slapped Jacob viciously. The crisp snap was unusually loud. "What kind of a thing are you to talk to me like that?" she said in a contemptuous tone as she glared angrily. Jacob was slapped so hard that he inclined his head. His face froze for half a second. And then he reacted. His hidden anger was about to spurt out. But it was still hardened and suppressed. His hand clenched into a fist. The hundreds of thousands of netizens squatting in the live broadcast room were probably also slapped in the dark. And it was only after a long time that the pop-ups in the live broadcast room clattered and brushed over. "What happened?" Claire slapped the director. "What's going on? Isn't it said that Claire has the best temper in the entertainment industry? That look in her eyes. That demeanor doesn't look like she has a good temper. OMG, Claire just looked so fierce. The filter of her gentle atmosphere is shattered to the ground. She looks like she reminds me of when my dad domesticated my mom and hated her to death. Claire is not like that. It's hard to say without knowing the real situation. Maybe it's scripted. Yeah, what can't a director do for ratings?" The pop-ups are still arguing. Claire gave them a direct lesson. The scene was silent. No one dared to move. I walked up after signaling Ellie to continue filming and tapped the director's shoulder for him to wait for me on the sidelines. The director raised his eyes with a complicated look of hidden annoyance and helplessness. And finally could only droop his head and walk away. "Millie, Jacob is not very good at doing things. I'll teach him." Seeing me come over, Claire laughed and said. I nodded and said, "Yes." "Then what do you want to do? Live cannot be because you feel bitter. Feel tired on the stop. Isn't it enough to find a stand-in?" Before I could finish my sentence, she snorted and said, "Anyway, the netizens, as long as you see my back on the line. Even if you suspect my fans will also bloodwash the square. No one will say anything," she said. Oh, I pretended to contemplate. "Eyes down?" asked Eric. "What is your relationship? He helped you smooth out quite a lot of things." Speaking of Eric, she became alert and eyed me searchingly. I touched the ring on my hand and calmly met her eyes. "It's none of your business. Is it?" She raises an eyebrow and smiles lightly. "However, if you want to get acquainted, I can introduce you." Saying that, she came to my ear and laughed softly. "Mr. Shank White likes your kind. Innocent looking. And a little smart. Like a cat. Most seductive." I laughed and took a step back. "Is that so? Is that how you find people for him?" She laughed and snorted. "What searching? Don't say so hard to hear. But it's just a matter of your love and my willingness. They want to be popular. Want to make money. Mr. Jean has resources and money. Why not? Oh, but it is just pulling the stripes behavior. But also say so nice." I didn't say much. Turned my face. And my gaze fell in the direction of the camera, whether it's a matter of your feelings or not. The netizens have their own judgment. The words fell. Claire's smile froze on her face. A split-second reaction. Pulled out an ugly smile. "Millie, you're lying to me?" I laughed and shook my head. Said word for word, "I'm Millie, never cheat. Only screw people." Claire knew that I was not joking. Her face was so black that it could drip ink. And she glared viciously at me. Her expression could be described as wonderful. The pop-ups were great too. Shit shit shit. Is this a showbiz secret I can listen to? Don't be surprised. All of these things are the default of people in the circle. It's just that it's the first time they've been spoken about so bluntly. The entertainment industry is just so messed up. This reminds me of the time when an 18th tier girl on the internet said she was subordinated by Claire. Anonymous. For the record, Claire's real personality is like this. Arrogant and overbearing. Jealous and ruthless. She has victimized many showbiz newcomers. Script it. Claire isn't that stupid to expose herself to this kind of thing on this kind of occasion. Right? Yeah. Use your brain. Who would do something bad to themselves on air? It must be scripted. Claire has a lot of brainwashed fans. Don't they pay attention? Claire didn't even know it was on air. Claire's fans are getting ready to bloodbath the square. So pay attention. Well, the netizens in the live broadcast are arguing fiercely. The content of the live broadcast also made it to the hot search, causing an uproar. Numerous netizens broke into the live broadcast at the sound of it. Then the net collapsed. The live broadcast was forced to stop. Emergency network engineers were allowed to repair it. Claire also struck the recording in a huff, saying that she would send a lawyer's letter to the director's team, because the live broadcast in unknown circumstances, damage to her reputation, is a clandestine recording. However, netizens didn't give her the time of day. It's impossible for me to give her this opportunity either. Public opinion fermented quickly. This session of netizens was good, and they quickly picked up the dirty things Claire had done. But in just half an hour, Claire became the target of an all-network crusade. In comparison, the discussion about Eric had a hidden trend of fermentation from the beginning. By the end, there wasn't a single discussion about him on the entire internet. It's capitalizing on the downfall, dropping Claire and even adding to the fire. Millie, having fun? Brother, I have smashed hundreds of millions of dollars to play with you. How should I be released from the blacklist? Eric, take Eric's cell phone to call me. Sincere attitude. Tone immoderate. Still applauding air. I deflated. Just a few $100 million. You think I'm looking at that? There was a beat on the other side of the phone. Then a laugh. That. He probably wanted to say something else. But I didn't listen and just hung up. In the meantime, I'm going to black out Eric again. Although Eric and I don't have any grudges. I don't like the way he acts. If it wasn't for my limited ability, I would more or less have to send him to jail for a few years. After hanging up the phone, I saw the director squatting aside to smoke a cigarette in sorrow. His brows dead frowning. His face drawn long. Jacob. Regret? You could have turned off the live broadcast at that time. I stood aside, looking at the engineer who was busy, and asked with a smile. Jacob pressed the cigarette but on the ground, whispered a few curses. Humph. Should give her a lesson. The dog fights for the power of others. If she has no capital behind her, who the hell to hold her with the same as holding an ancestor? Said. He suddenly stood up. The bottom of the eyes with a little pity and aggrieved said, Millie, I have an old man. Under the small. You see, cannot I accept? Listening to his wording, I raised my eyebrows. I'm not interested in old mature men. However, I am preparing to invest in an entertainment company and need a specialized director. You go over and give you the highest treatment. After saying that, he instantly brightened his eyes. And Regina, who was standing off to the side, probably heard us talking, and looked our way a few more times. I sent her a friendly smile. Her eyes skimmed over me and then retracted. I made sure of it. She really doesn't treat me well. I also don't know if inviting her to join my entertainment company is something she would agree to, because the public opinion about Claire on the internet was too fierce. It even had a negative impact on the program. According to the contract, Claire would not only have to quit the program but also lose money. When the live broadcast started again, the pop-up screen had already brushed the screen. A little worried about Millie. Although they know Millie is great. But that's Eric. Millie won't be affected. Right? Protect our Millie. The pop-ups are full of protecting me. My friend couldn't stand it. Our Millie doesn't need protecting. And Felix is floating by with his name in gold. Oh, it's the guy. Eric clicked to Millie. I've blacked out Eric. Let me out of the little black room. I've got business to talk to you. Eric was right behind him. Protection my ass. I wouldn't fucking touch Millie even if I fucked Felix. Got it? Eric suddenly went airborne. Felix seconds back? A few people's maneuvers made the netizens look stupid. I was dumbfounded too. They actually let their words play back and forth in a loop. Then the live broadcast was once again sent to the hot search by them. The netizens once again deep picked my identity. This time, They pickpocketed that I was the wholly owned controller of Jinjin Investment Company. There are 8 listed companies under the name. The netizens went crazy and all flooded into the live broadcast room at once. The pop-ups almost covered the people. Jealousy made me lose my face. Millie Bull. My God. Millie. How the hell did she do it? Rich sister. Short of bed warmers. I can. Millie. Millie. Millie will be my idol from now on. If you're so young and have so many assets. Your background is not easy. Right? I agree with you. It's hard to get a son from a poor family. Those who can get into the upper class are those who have a good background. Or have a backstage and a bigwig. Millie is the third. She has been with the top boss in the capital many times and endowed of hotels and other places. She has been with many bosses, so you know why all the projects she invested in made big profits. According to this situation, Millie's investment company is an empty shell for people to launder money. Upstairs. You're responsible for what you say on the internet. For a while, the pop-up screen was full of arguments about me. All kinds of rumors about me and my company sprang up. Subsequently, there were those who scolded me, and those who defended me. I didn't care at first. Instead, it was the director who couldn't sit still first. During our herb digging, he cursed and reported those people one by one. Felix, on the other hand, went straight to the line and cursed. Damn. What kind of trash dare to say this to me, Millie? I merely rely on my own. If you're not good enough, you think others are not good enough. The screenshot is up. Anyone who slanders or damages Millie's reputation will be waiting for a lawyer's letter. And Eric is on the mic. What kind of person do you think Eric is after a couple years? Women can also rely on their own talent and ability to stand at the peak of power. Men, well, can also rely on women. Who has the ability to who is the boss? Eric followed closely. Maybe they went down. And the Jets started making yellow rumors about me, and then the director couldn't help himself. The director couldn't help himself and pulled me out of the live room. Millie. Now the internet is full of posts that blacken you. Do you see the need to blow up those posts? I have people. I laughed. No. Let them bounce around for a while. The director does not understand. Anxious. They jump again. Public opinion is going to be one-sided. I've seen network violence. Even if you can carry it, will have to shed a layer of skin. Well, I just want to shed skin. I took my cell phone and sent a message. Said with a smile. I ignored the intensifying insults and all sorts of dirty water being thrown at me. Also banned Felix and the others from stepping up again. Let the spammers go wild. In the midst of the screen full of curses, I calmly lead the guests through the mountains and forests. Perhaps by luck, we picked quite a few herbs. When we came down from the mountain, several people were almost paralyzed with fatigue. All the work clothes and pants were rubbed with yellow mud. And there were a lot of small cuts on the hands by the branches and leaves. All of them lost the polish they had when they first came here. But instead, they were more compatible with the program. Back to my thatched hut. A few people have no image of sitting on their asses in front of the house, picking out the herbs they picked while fanning themselves with their hats. The scene was harmonious. And the pop-up screen in the live broadcast was fishy. Just as the director predicted. I was cyberstormed. Just because I didn't come out to clarify in the first place. The incited netizens believed it. The guests couldn't help but frown as they watched the pop-ups, looking at me with some concern. I've suffered from cyber violence before. The actress guest suddenly stirred up the conversation. How did it come out? The male singer guest darted a glance at me and asked eagerly. Turn off your cell phone, and don't go online. The actress turned her gaze to me, and said sincerely. It's obvious they're talking over me with this one to punch. I know very professional teams that deal with cyber violence. If you want to go through legal channels, I can introduce you to them, Regina said as she also frowned slightly. A hint of worry flashing in her eyes. I could tell they were really giving me ideas. Just as well it's time to close the net. In the midst of their worried gazes, under the live studio camera, I took out my cell phone and made a call. Imani, did you find out who hired the spammers? I turned on the external broadcast and asked unapologetically. Yes. All of a sudden such a large-scale damage to my reputation. In addition to being intentional, I cannot think of any possibility. Perhaps it was because they finally saw me reacting to this. The spammers in the pop-up grabbed my words and started spraying. What kind of paranoia is this? And checking who hired the spammers. We're not spammers. We just don't like what you're doing. Oh, to say a little truth is said to be a spammer. Since you dared to go on the air to make money, you should bear our point of view. The spammers were like judges standing on the high ground, accusing me of trumped-up charges. The next second, I had them all dead. I've got it. It's clear. I've submitted the relevant evidence to my lawyer. On the other end of the phone, there was a clear and calm voice. Anyone could hear it. Because I turned it up the loudest. The words fell. The pop-up screen was quiet for a moment. Millie was just talking about Claire. Right? Shit. It's the first time I've seen such a direct person. It's worthy of being the rich and powerful Millie. Not only does Claire have to withdraw from a program, I'm afraid she'll have to go in and step on the sewing machine. Millie is suing. Millie is suing. There is already information about the lawsuit on the internet. Just got back from Weibo. Millie is suing not only Claire, but also dozens of jets. And she's suing with evidence. I'm Millie. Silly me. There are still people following the spammers. If Millie really wants to pursue, you all are legally responsible for what you have said. Where are the spammers? Why don't they come out? Come on. Go on. You Millie will send you straight to the sewing machine. Cool. I'm a member of the public. I can't help but feel that Millie is a great heroine. The netizens were cooled by my operation. And the screen was full of cool words. The director lowered his head to swipe his cell phone, laughing so hard that the corners of his mouth grinned up to the base of his ears. Hanging up the phone, I turned my eyes to Regina and the others. Thank you guys just now. But I still like to return the favor directly. The kind that leaves no room for error. I said as I looked at them and smiled. They gave me a thumbs up in perfect unison. Only Regina gave me a glaring look. I read that look as a scolding look of anger that I didn't spell out my plans and made them worry for nothing. Well, there's hope for bringing Regina into the company. That was the end of that. The broadcasting room, which had been in a boiling state, finally quieted down for a while. And netizens began to focus their attention on the herbs we were drying. Is there anyone to popularize? What are these herbs? Just now focusing on eating melon. Did not pay attention to listen to now to make up for the lesson. Wild ginseng. Gentian herb. Pituitary wormwood. Prickly 5+ Millie could open a pharmacy with all the herbs here. You can tell how much Millie loves herbs from that room. The crowd ran out of melon and started making fun of me. I was introducing the benefits of herbs to the guests. And the netizens wanted to buy herbs from me. Millie, I have severe hair loss. Do you have any recommendations for herbs? Millie, I have insomnia and sleeplessness. And I wake up tired. What kind of herbal medicine should I use to regulate this? Can I buy it directly from here? I trust you. Millie, I see you have a lot of gentian herb. Look. Can I buy 2 pounds? Unexpectedly. This popular science variety show has a tendency to become a live selling room. Watching netizens wanting to buy medicine, I realized. Perhaps a chain of Chinese medicine hall can be opened. Just as I was lost in thought about the feasibility of opening a chain of Chinese medicine centers, Gabriel's mellow voice came through the door. I'm here to talk to you, Gabriel said, grinning broadly as he pulled on the fence. Millie, I've come to natter too. Please don't be offended. Winston from the pharmaceutical company stood to the side and said with a refined smile. I didn't expect the two to come so quickly. I lost my smile and welcomed them in. The others froze and stood to the side, shouting with respect. Hello, Gabriel. Winston. The director, on the other hand, smiled into a flower, reacted extremely quickly, and immediately added to separate camera positions for the two. And the camera was given to the two. The pop-up screen resumed its familiar pattern. A screen full of exclamation points. I habitually ignored it and took the two to the living room with only tables and chairs. The director was very good at his job. And the table was already set for us with downers and wine. Gabriel was not polite. He directly opened the door and took out a pile of paper from the briefcase he brought with him. Millie, this is the experimental report that our research group has done recently. Can you see what's wrong? Why the result of our refinement is always unsatisfactory? Gabriel frowned tightly and handed me the lab report. I quickly scanned through the highlights, thought carefully and then put pen to paper and wrote him a prescription. Crane's Bill, Angelica da Hurica, licorice, half summer, and fine spices are each 1 kion. And 5 kion of Chuanjiang rhizome is used to boil them in wine. And they will be cured in a single drunken session. The quick-eyed netizen took a screenshot of the prescription. Millie recommended the prescription. Save it. Who cares what it is for? Millie, do you run a Chinese medicine center? I can go and spend money. I can go and spend money. I don't know why. But I always think Millie can do anything. Nora once found the method of extracting artemisinin in a Chinese medicine prescription. It's an ancient remedy for headaches. You want to extract what's in the cranberry. Try using Chuanjiang with ethanol. Or neutralize the herbs in this. I hand Gabriel the prescription. Gabriel thought for a moment. And then slapped his thighs in excitement as if he had come to a realization. Why didn't I think of this method? The wisdom of our ancestors cannot be underestimated. Many of our herbal remedies have been underestimated and forgotten. Winston said with a sigh. Winston, don't worry. We have a long way to go to promote and develop the traditional culture of Chinese medicine. So let's take our time. Slowly? If we take our time, we'll be bought out by outsiders. Winston suddenly became agitated and slammed his glass back on the table in anger and helplessness. Gabriel was silent. I frowned slightly. It seemed like a lot had happened while I was on vacation. What do you mean? Winston hung his head somewhat dejectedly, tilted his head back and smothered a mouthful of wine before saying, I couldn't hold on to this pharmaceutical company anymore. And the HAIE group approached me and offered to buy it out, offering good conditions that would also allow me to keep the hundreds of prescriptions. So I agreed. Damn. Who would have thought that he turned around and sold it to the Chinese medicine company Sabati and Group? Is this enough of a son of a bitch? If this was in the past, he would be a traitor. In the end, Winston glared angrily and cursed. At that point, I realized what kind of business Winston wanted to talk to me about. And the 5G surfers instantly understood after Winston said that. Shit. I've seen this on the internet before. It pissed me off to no end. So, Winston came over to Millie because Millie could solve it? It's obvious that Sabati and the group came here prepared. It's hard to get them to spit out what they've eaten into their mouths. It's almost impossible to get them to spit it out. Agree with upstairs. Even if Millie has enough funds, and the other party doesn't want to trade, there's nothing she can do. Then this is no way? Trust Millie. The netizens are excited. I lowered my eyes in contemplation. Indeed. As netizen said, they came prepared. So even if you spend tens of times the price to try to buy it back again, it's still impossible. But it's not like there's no way around it. So, Winston, the business you want to talk to me about is? I raised my eyes and looked straight at him. His expression suddenly became serious. I want you to buy back the pharmaceutical company. Of course. If Millie can buy back the pharmaceutical company, I will give you the prescription that my Lee family treasures unconditionally. I don't know. Is my Lee family's prescription worth talking about this business? The Lee family's treasured prescription is worth at least several $100 million. I didn't expect him to be so sincere. I nodded slightly. Deal. But I still have a condition. I hope that after the medicine company gets back, Winston can continue to be the president of the company. Winston gave a start and looked at me in surprise. Then he nodded his head with some wetness under his eyes. I needed to leave the live room because I had to go take care of things. The director thought of following me, but I refused. Because extraordinary things need extraordinary means. This cannot be filmed. Before leaving, Gabriel, who replaced me, gave me a reluctant look. Millie, come back early. I will wait for your good news. I don't know what happened, but the whole crew sent me down the mountain on their own accord. A huge group of people waved to me at the foot of the mountain and shouted, Millie, I'm waiting for your triumph. The pop-up screen also followed. The screen was full of, waiting for Millie's triumph. I saw the corner of my mouth twitching. The roadside grandparents looked at us like they were in shock. I silently rolled the window up and waved goodbye. The Tsubati-wa Group wasn't a good thing. They had bought up a lot of pharmaceutical companies in recent years. Looking at the information Imani had gathered, I gave a slight lurch. These pharmaceutical companies, they were all acquired by Tsubati-wa Group at a high price by the hands of a third party after their financial chains broke. Oh, it seems that it's all a conspiracy. Imani, make an appointment for me with Yazil from Tsubati-wa Group. And tell him that I want to talk to him about the investment. Rubbing the information of Yazil, the old fox on the data. I smiled and said, probably because my name was still somewhat useful. Yazil asked me to meet him the next evening. He was dressed in a formal kimono, and smiled like a man. Millie, I've heard a lot about you. He stood up, held out his hand to me, and spoke in broken Chinese. I was silent for a few seconds, shook his hand and smiled. I've heard a lot about you. After taking my seat, I wiped my hands with a wet paper towel. And I didn't want to be polite. Yazil, I want to recover an XIA Pharmaceuticals from you. How much did you pay in total for the acquisition? My side 10 times the price recovery. He looked deeply at me and handed me a cup of tea. Millie, really rich and generous. But this in XIA Pharmaceuticals. How much money I will not sell. How about we talk about other cooperation? For example, medicinal herbs acquisition. We cooperate. We will definitely earn a lot. This old fox half lifted his eyelids to look at me and sighed with a smile on his face. Since Yazil doesn't want to sell it, forget it. I think that I will only have the possibility of this cooperation with you. And for other cooperation, you should find someone else. I said with a smile, not hiding my antipathy towards him. He saw it. Millie, doing business. As long as you can make money, isn't it? Why care who it is? Don't you think? Doing business with me, I can let more profit to you. He took a sip of tea and said with a smile, shopping malls have no borders. But businessmen have a motherland. I am a Chinese first. And then a businessman. I looked at him and said word by word. It can't be helped. There are some things I can't forget. So it's impossible to cooperate with him. His face sank. This business is considered to be broken. But we are a country of etiquette. We should be courteous first. And news that the negotiations between Tsubati and I and the Tsubati and Group failed was spread out. And the photo of me and the Tsubati and Group's boss shaking hands in a friendly manner was also on the hot search. Some mole tried to smear me, using the picture to say that Yazil and I were in cahoots. Then there was a blast from the netizens. After that, I disappeared for a month. And netizens went from believing me in the beginning to being skeptical in the end. They ran to my Weibo to leave messages, wanting to know the latest development. Millie, what's the situation? It's been a month. Why is there no news at all? Yeah. What's the progress? Give me a reply. Millie left the country a long time ago. She knew she couldn't do it and went abroad to avoid public opinion. You've all been fooled. How could Millie be so capable? She's just a persona. Oh, if Millie really went to retrieve an XIA, her friends would have come out long ago. And look at them now. None of them have come out. Well, the internet opinion about me is festering again. When Imani called me, She asked if I wanted to clarify. I smiled and shook my head. The internet is a mixed bag. And most people listen to what they hear. So if I clarified everything, I'd be exhausted. Of course. I also warned my friends not to come forward. Can't take up network resources. Half a month later, the verdict came down about Claire and the internet's spammers. Claire was sentenced to 2 years and 2 months for paying the spammers to defame and slander me plus other things. And the first few spammers, who were always on the internet and profited from it, were sentenced to 3 years. Because of this, the netizens remembered me again. Scolding for the most part. But I also ignored it. After the live roundup, I asked Imani to sign a few guests, and a few were happy to do so. Except for Regina. She had to speak to me personally before deciding whether to sign or not. I laughed helplessly and had to personally dial her number to sign someone. Hello. Who is it? The call was answered and her crisp, pleasant voice came through. I smiled. It's me. If you think I open conditions are not good enough, you can drop a contract yourself. While I said half a dozen things about the contracting, there was silence on her end. At the end of it, she only asked in a low voice, "Where are you?" "Hawaii. On vacation." Silence again on her end. I smiled, knowing what she meant by asking, but did not wait for me to speak. She seemed to suppress some emotion. Low voice asked, "I can't rest you." I was silent for a long time. And returned aloud, "Of course." Good. The contract sent over. I sign. This time she did not hesitate. Said directly hung up the phone. Coincidentally, just after she hung up, another call came in. It was Yaziel. Looking at the name on the cell phone screen, I curled my lips and connected. "Millie, you're the one who messed up. You're the one behind this." Yaziel's angry snarl came through before I could even ask a good question. What's the problem? Compared to his anger, I was in a good mood now. After all, it's only a company that was acquired and several more subsidiaries were given away. So of course I'm in a good mood. He seemed to take a deep breath, suppressing his anger, and asked, "How much? How much would it take for you to be willing to give away all the shares of Sabati and the group?" Looking at the endless sea in the distance, I slightly squinted my eyes and smiled. "The company. I have already turned it over to the state." As the words fell, a burst of smashing things came from the other side of the phone, followed by a few angry expletives. Then, without waiting for me to hang up the phone, there was a burst of noise over there. In the noise, someone was shouting for help. I curled my lips and hung up the phone after mentally chanting Amitabha. The news that Sabati Group and all of Sabati Group's subsidiaries had become state-owned enterprises was spread online. The internet exploded. Netizens were going wild. "Shit. It's not true. This operation was too sick." Laughing and getting rich. The company that had nearly acquired our Chinese medicine company even ended up becoming our state-owned enterprise. I've been following the news of our pharmaceutical companies, and when I saw this news, I was so damn happy to see my anger dissipate. Not in vain. After I read this, I laughed too loud in the bathroom and my boss caught me. "Millie did it. Didn't she?" One sentence stirred up 1,000 waves. Many people flocked to my microblogging, asking if I did it. I didn't reply. Took a sip of coconut water and called back to ask Imani to prepare the herbal outlet. After all, our traditional culture is still ours to guard.